So contrary to popular belief and a few rubbish music videos on YouTube, the BlackBerry is far from dead, and BlackBerry's released what is probably best described as its weirdest handset yet. Yes, I'm talking about the Blackberry Passport. Now, for years, BlackBerry's tried and failed to compete with Android and iOS. Even its enterprise platform has been taken over, and as a result, lots of people, including me, have abandoned ship. I left the party way back in the day at the bold 9000, but thankfully, BlackBerry's gone back to its roots, doing what it does best, getting things done. But I've got to admit, I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with it. So the Passport is clearly all about productivity, and it is a bit of a quirky design, but I think that's part of its charm and what makes it quite cool. Now, the dimensions aren't that far off from a Passport, which probably isn't an accident, which makes it quite a niche device, but it's also a device that you can afford to drop on the floor a few times without worrying that it's going to smash into smithereens. And yes, you do have to use it with two hands, but you know, the iPhone 6 Plus, the Note 4, the LG G3, all these handsets fare better when used with two hands. Now, when it comes to the display, everything looks really nice. It's a 4.5-inch screen and it is humongous. Now, it's a display that's been designed to read things on, and everything looks good, whether it's emails, PDFs, and you know, this is a very purpose-built screen for doing very businessy things. So if you like spreadsheets, graphs, that kind of thing, this is definitely the device for you. The physical keyboard is what makes the Passport a true BlackBerry, and in true BlackBerry style, it's clicky and responsive and really comfortable to type on, but it's got a little trick up its sleeve, so it's now touch sensitive, so you can use it to scroll through emails, web pages, tweets, and that kind of thing, which is great because it also means you don't obscure the screen. It does take a bit of getting used to because it now sports a new layout, but once you've grown accustomed to it, you'll be banging out emails, tweets, messages in no time, maybe sometimes without even looking at the screen. So the Passport runs a refined version of BB10. It's smooth and generally it's just a pleasure to use. I've always been a fan of BlackBerry's gestures, so swipe up when you're in an app and it exits the app. When you're within an app, swipe down and you can access its settings. Kind of reminds me of the time I had a BlackBerry Playbook, which was very, very short-lived. I think the operating system itself, is quite underrated, but more importantly, it's nothing like Android or iOS. And then there's BB Hub. This basically aggregates all your notifications and messages, which is really great if you're a bit of a social butterfly. But I think its killer feature has to be BlackBerry Blend, which basically means you can access your BB content remotely from a tablet, Mac or PC as long as you've got BlackBerry Blend installed on your smartphone and it's switched on. Now, BlackBerry has always failed in the app department, but this time round you can access Android apps via the preloaded Amazon App Store, which is great and a huge improvement. BlackBerry World still exists, which is all about productivity, but all the fun stuff is going to be up to the Amazon App Store. And if you really want to get a little bit nerdy, you can try downloading the Google Play client Snap, which basically mirrors the Google Play Store and gives you a full-fat Android experience on your BlackBerry. The Passport is also BlackBerry's most powerful device to date, with a quad-core Snapdragon processor and 3 GB of RAM, so everything is smooth and fluid, and most importantly, it is fast. Now, it's also got the best camera it's ever seen in a BlackBerry, 13 megapixels. It shoots 1080p video, autofocus, and should be more than enough for your social network feeds. It kind of reminds me of one of those really awful, quirky handsets from the 90s, a bit like the Nokia N-Gage. It's awkward to use one-handed, makes it a bit unwieldy. When you do so, you do run the risk of potentially dropping it on the floor. And although that display is fantastic, it's let down by the fact that video is flanked by 2 black boxes, which, quite frankly, is hideous. So BlackBerry went and changed that QWERTY design that we all know and love, and the new layout does take a bit of getting used to, and I think it's caused a lot of upset with a lot of people. You can't type one word, even the simplest word, with one hand. It's simply too wide. That spacebar causes all kinds of confusion when you're trying to type, and I think for a lot of people, they'll be a lot quicker on their virtual keyboards. The gestures are great if you know what you're doing, but it's not very intuitive. So if you've not used a BlackBerry before, you might find it a little bit tricky. And the hub, which I mentioned earlier, do you really need that many notifications? It's all a bit messy and a little bit overwhelming, and a feature that I think that BlackBerry could do without. And as much as I love the recent apps, there's really no sense of order, and it's all a bit messy. And the more apps you open, the messier this becomes. But the app selection is still pretty rubbish compared to Android and iOS, and it's a bit slow when you're multitasking, so that's a bit of a design flaw there. And the camera, yes, it may be the best camera to ever land on a BlackBerry, but it's slow to launch, and sometimes it's slow to process your pictures, which is more than a little bit frustrating. So it's fair to say the Blackberry Passport is the most in-your-face BlackBerry ever. It's a bit of a Marmite device, or maybe a secondary device at best, with Android and iOS devices out there. You've got to really, really want to get the Blackberry Passport. Saying that, it's got a great screen, a decent camera, decent battery life, so it's quite a decent option if you're looking for a productivity device. I personally don't think BlackBerry is yet to go to the grave, but I'd love to know what you think. Do you think BlackBerry is dead? Let me know if you've got a BlackBerry Passport. Anything BlackBerry, just hit me up in the comments. I'd love to know all about it. And as ever, make sure you subscribe to Teccles Cake.